So let's see. Let's take the first rule here. It's pretty simple. We're just looking at the EMA slope, or the slope of the EMA. So, and we just want the direction of the slope in the direction of the trade, right? So simply up for longs, sloping down for shorts. So that's pretty straightforward. Grab a indicator slope solver, like so, and let's connect it up to the result node here. And let's give this a name first. So we'll just call it the EMA 120 slope. So let's go plug the EMA in there. All right, so there's our EMA. Change the period to 120. All right, let's call it good. And I guess before I get too far ahead of myself, let's put these indicators on the chart. All right, so there's the EMA, and we also need the Heiken Ashi. All right, so let's put those on the chart there. And all right, good enough. Actually, let's see here. Since I'm working with a black chart, let's change the wick color there. Okay, so far we've added the slope of the EMA into BloodHound. So we can see clearly the slope is down. So BloodHound's giving us a short output, and when the slope is up, BloodHound is giving us a long output there. All right, so far so good, pretty easy. All right, let me get back over to our logic board here. And all right, next part, we're going to be working with the Heiken Ashi indicator here. So we just want the bar in the direction of the trade. So now the Heiken Ashi is not a bar type, right? It's an indicator. So hopefully you guys just noticed that, right? When I put the Heiken Ashi on, I had to load an indicator. So it's not a, it's not a bar type. So when we go to our solvers list, we can't use the bar direction because this chart is not a Heiken Ashi chart. It's a 5-range chart. Right? So if we use the bar direction, it'd be the bar direction of the 5-range bar, not the Heiken Ashi indicator. So what we'll need instead is a comparison solver. And so how do you determine the direction of a bar? Quite simple. You compare the open to the close and the close to the open. So that's what we'll do, is we'll compare the open price of the Heiken Ashi to the close price of the Heiken Ashi. So let's plug that in here. So I'll just call this Heiken Ashi bar direction in the comparison solver. Right, so input A, that'll be our open price, and then input B, that'll be the closing price of the Heiken Ashi indicator. All right, so let's plug in the Heiken Ashi indicator in there. All right, there's the Heiken Ashi, and we can see we have all 4 Heiken Ashi prices available to us there. So I said we're going to use the open price first. So there we go. Open price is already selected for us automatically. And of course, in the parameters here, there is no parameters for the Heiken Ashi. So just click OK. That part's done. Now let's go into input B and set up the Heiken Ashi closing price. Click OK. Alright, so as we're looking at this comparison solver, let's see here. Actually, I need to reverse things here. If you noticed, right? When we have green up bars, BloodHound's giving us a short output here. So that simply just means I can do two things. I could either reverse my output, or I can reverse my inputs here, right? Either way it'll work in this case, and I'm just simply going to reverse the indicator settings here. So I'll choose the close first, and then come down here to input B and choose the open there. Okay, so there we go. So now we can see BloodHound's giving us a long output when we have Heiken Ashi up bars. There you go. Okay, so that's part 2 done. And the next part, we want to make sure there's no tails. So the example I have here is for a long, we want to make sure that there's no low wick. So the tail usually means a bottom wick like that. Well, for an up bar, I want to make sure there's no bottom wick. And I think the opposite is true for a down bar. You want to make sure that there's no upper wick, like so. So that is going to be another comparison solver, right? So what are we doing? We're making sure that the low of the bar equals the open of the bar, right? So in this case, the low of the bar is not equal to the open, but clearly on these other bars, it is. So we're going to be using right, the Heiken Ashi prices again, just like we did in this comparison solver. So what I'm going to do is take a little shortcut here. I'm going to go over to the Solvers tab, and I'm going to make a copy of this Heiken Ashi bar direction comparison solver. Make a copy of that, and let's see here. So what shall I call this? I guess I'll just call it no wicks, something like that. Right. So I'll go and adjust the plots later here. So first thing I'm going to do is put that new solver on the board. So let's go to existing nodes. And here's that Heiken Ashi no wicks solver I just made. Let's plug that in. And alright, so we want to make sure, yeah, so for the outputs, we're going to use this A equals B. So I'm going to set that to 0. Set that to 1. And same thing for the short outputs. I'm going to use the A equals B, right? Because A is going to be either the Heiken Ashi low price or the Heiken Ashi high price, right? So if we're checking up bars, we're going to be using the low, and if we're checking down bars, we're going to be using the high price. So, you know, A will be the high or low price, and B will be the open price of the bar. Let's finish changing this output here. Okay, so now let's go in and adjust the prices that we're using. All right, so for longs, we're looking at the low price for longs, and we're going to be looking at the high price for shorts. And input B, that's going to be the open price, and that's already selected for us, so that's good. And all right, so let's take a look here. So on this up bar, there's no output, right? No long output. That's exactly what we want, right? Because remember, rule number 3 says has no tail. So this has a tail, so it doesn't qualify, right? So that bar is missing a tail. So that's what we're looking for. And we have a long output on that bar, right? No tail, we have a long output. No tail, we have a long output. No tail, long output. Now, let me point something out here. Let's see if it even happens. So it might be possible to get a long output on a down bar, on a Heiken Ashi down bar. But it doesn't actually look like the Heiken Ashis work that way. Yeah, so maybe on a Heiken Ashi down bar, maybe there is always a lower wick. Yeah, I'm not finding one. So okay, well, the point I was going to make is that if we did have a down bar, but BloodHound gave us a long output, that would be okay. That would not matter in this case, because the Heiken Ashi bar direction would cancel that out, right? So yeah, so as far as rule number 3 goes, looking for no tail, right? If there was no tail on a down bar, that's okay, because rule number 2 would cancel that long output. You know, if we did have a long output on a down bar, it's okay, because it would get canceled out by this other solver. So now that we have all 3 rules built here, we need to just plug them all together with an AND node. So the rules are pretty simple. You know, you just need all 3 rules occurring on the same bar here. So let's plug those all into an AND node. And there we go. So there's every occurrence when all 3 rules are met together. So we can see on this down bar, there is an upper tail, so it doesn't qualify. Now on these up bars, we had to wait for the EMA to start sloping up. And then we got an output here. And we can see this bar has a very tiny tail. So this bar didn't qualify due to that tiny tail there. So that violated rule number 3 there. Alright, well that was it. Pretty simple. Now let's build an exit here. Basically, the exit was just we're looking for the opposite direction bar. So you know, so if you took this long signal here, then you would exit on this first red bar. So let's rename this logic template here. So there's the entry logic, and let's make a new logic template here. So we're going to exit on the Heiken Ashi bar. And so what do we need for that? Well, remember we have an existing solver node here that's looking at the Heiken Ashi bar direction. So we can just grab that solver that's already built, plug it in, and there we go. And that's your exit signals. Right? So it's okay to have multiple exit signals. Right? So let's look at the entry signals again here. And you know, so let's say if you used Raven or Blackbird, you know, or you know, even just discretionarily, you know, went long right there. Right, so we're long from this bar, and then if we look at the exit signals, right? And so then you exit on, oh, let me grab that diamond, there we go. So then if you exit on this first red bar, you know, you're flat, right? You're out of a trade. So the exit signal on the next 3 down bars is going to do nothing because they're exit signals. So you don't have to worry about excess exit signals. They're just ignored if you're flat. They're ignored by Raven and Blackbird if you're flat, I should say. So, all right. So the exits are done. And so now this Raven part. So what's wanted here is a stop loss 3 ticks away from the entry signal's Heiken Ashi open price. Now that capability is actually beyond Raven. So just keep in mind, Ravens is just a little freebie. And Raven's stop losses can be set from the entry price, but Raven's stop losses can't be set from some other price. So unfortunately, this type of stop loss would require Blackbird there. So, but let's see here. Let me close out BloodHound and let's put it on the entry signals there. So let's go into the strategies. We'll take a quick look at Raven. So let's grab Raven. There we go. And if we look at Raven's stop loss parameters here, you know, it just has a input value of ticks. So this input right now, the measurement unit is set to ticks. You know, so if I want a stop loss of 10 ticks, I just put 10 in there. And what is that 10 ticks from? That's always from the entry price. So whatever the entry price that the order gets filled at, you know, Raven just places a 10 tick stop loss from that entry price. Same with profit targets. Profit targets are only associated from profit targets are only offset from the entry price, right? So, yeah, if you want more advanced capabilities, you know, in setting your profit targets and stop losses, that's what Blackbird is all about there. So, all right, so that does it for this question here. I think we got this one all wrapped up. So let me see if there's any questions or comments on this, on what we've covered so far. So no, doesn't look like it. All right, yeah, this one was pretty straightforward here. Okay, so let's define this type of engulfing pattern here. It's a little different than NinjaTrader's engulfing pattern. So this type of engulfing, you have to take, right, the previous bar, and you have to take the high of that bar, of the previous bar, and you have to take the low of the previous bar. And we need, let's see here. Yeah, I'll use a rectangle here. And so what we need is the body. So we need the body of the engulfing bar has to engulf the entire previous bar, including the wicks. So that's how this engulfing pattern is a little different than the one that NinjaTrader has coded up in their indicator, right? So the body of the engulfing bar has to exceed the high and low of the previous bar day. So that's the type of engulfing that this question is looking for. All right, so with that type of engulfing defined, and then the next step is part 2, or the second requirement, is on the following day. So you take, either the high or the low of the engulfing bar. So since this is a down bar, so that's a down. So we would take the low, and basically price needs to penetrate the low of a bearish engulfing bar. If it was a bullish engulfing bar, then we would need the next day to exceed the high of the engulfing bar. So there you go. That's part 2. So, and actually, this bar, obviously it did. So, yep, so we would get a signal on this next bar here. So, all right, so let's build that out in BloodHound now that we have everything defined. So, all right, so let's go to the logic board again. And let's create a new logic template right there. Okay, so what is this? All right, so we're looking for an engulfing bar with a, I guess you would say, a confirmation bar. So this, when you're looking for candlestick patterns, most of candlestick patterns, what are they doing? They're comparing a bunch of prices to prices, right? So you're comparing the prices of one bar to the prices of the previous bar, right? So in the case of this engulfing pattern, right, the engulfing bar, we're comparing the open and the close of the bar to the high and the low of the previous bar. So we're using a bunch, right, we're doing a bunch of price comparisons. So this will require a bunch of comparison solvers to do this. All right, let's see here. So yeah, the easiest thing is, let's just start with a bar direction. So we'll need a bar direction for the engulfing bar. So the bar direction, so the engulfing bar, right, is telling you the direction of the trade. So, but also we need the previous bar to be the opposite direction, right? So actually, I'm gonna do it with one bar direction solver here. So let's just get the bar direction working first. So if we plug this in, right, so this is a down engulfing bar, and we're getting a short output. Great. So ultimately, we're looking for a short signal, right? Ultimately, we're looking for a short signal on the confirmation bar. So, because the engulfing bar is a down bar. So great, we have a short output on the engulfing bar, but right on the previous bar, that's a long. So we need to convert this long output to a short output. And this way I'm going to do that is use the long short modifier. And not only do we need this long output, right, for this up bar to be reversed to a short output, but we also need to take the output of this bar and shift it forward by one bar, right, onto the next day. So we're going to do two steps here. So if I just take a long short modifier, right, and I'm just going to use the default mode of swap, right? So if we look at this up bar, right, is now giving us a short output, and these two down bars are now giving us a long output, right? So the outputs have been reversed of the bar direction, right? The bar direction outputs have been reversed. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to rename this function node here to swap. So that tells me what this long short modifier it's doing, right? It's just swapping the outputs. Okay, so now the next step, as I showed, I wanted to get this short output for this up bar onto the engulfing bar, right? I need to shift it forward one bar to the engulfing bar. And I can simply do that by using a look back node. And it's the displacement function of the look back node that shifts the output forward one bar. So now, if I look at it, there we go. So now the short output is on our engulfing bar. All right, and if you remember these two down bars, so these two down bars for the engulfing bar and the confirmation bar, they're both down bars. And those were reversed to long outputs. Well, here's the two long outputs. So remember, so everything's been shifted forward by one bar. So what I'm going to do now is grab a AND node, plug that in, plug in the bar direction, and let's take a look at that in the result node. Right. So we had an up bar and then a down bar, and so we have the short engulfing kind of confirmation of the two bar directions. So if we actually look at this, so we had an up bar and then a down bar, so we have a short output. Then we had a down bar and then an up bar, so we had a long output. You know, although these were not engulfing bars clearly, but we're just matching up opposite bar directions. And so when we get two up bars in a row, we get nothing, right? Because remember, we're looking for the bar directions to flip as a part of our engulfing pattern, right? So making sure that you have opposite bar directions is a part of the engulfing pattern. So if you have an up bar, an up bar, and an up bar, right, the two up bars have no output because they're, simply because they're both up bars, right? So you need to have reversing bar directions before you get an output. So that's one component of the engulfing pattern. Done. So let's see here. Let me rename this AND node here so we know what it's doing. So it is looking for reversing bar directions. So that's what's coming out of this AND node. Okay, so now we can start working on, I guess, the more complex part of comparing price data. Right, so we'll take the engulfing bar and we'll take the body of the engulfing bar and compare it to the high and low of the previous bar here. Alright, so let's see here. So I guess I'll compare the open price of the engulfing bar, and then I'm gonna, let's see, I'll make sure that it is gonna be greater than the high, right? So in this case, the open of the bar needs to be greater than the high, right? And that's for a bearish engulfing, and greater than the high or less than the low. Actually, let me reverse these here. I'll do the long. So if this was going to be a bullish engulfing, we want to make sure that the open is less than the low. So that would be for a long, bullish engulfing. Or it needs to be greater than the high for a bearish. I guess instead of trying to be so cryptic, there we go. We'll just put it in there twice. So let's go set the price data up. So we're looking at prices. So we need price data. So both input A and input B needs to be set to price data. All right, so for input A, we know that is going to be the open price. There we go. And the open price. And so for a bullish or a long, we know we're comparing the open to the low. And for a short, we're using the opposite, so that's going to be the high. And let's plug that solver in here. Forgot to plug that solver in. So let's take a look at BloodHound's output. So the open is greater than the high, and we are getting a short output. But also the open is, let's see, is it less than the low? It is not. So let's see here. I need to reverse my outputs here. And oh, now maybe I got this backwards. Hold on, let me re-evaluate here. Oh, okay, actually I'm gonna approach this a different way here. Let's just compare the open to the low. So there are multiple ways that you can set up the comparison solvers when you're looking for candlestick patterns here. And let me just circle this. Yeah, well, I haven't found a bullish engulfing pattern here that qualifies. So now that I got at least one solver set up, hopefully that'll help me scan back through the chart here and see if I can find a bullish engulfing pattern. And what I'm looking for is just a long output on BloodHound. Just looking for any long output. Well, I'm not having any luck with oil. So let's switch over to the ES. See what we find on the ES. Nothing on the ES. Well, alright, let me double check my logic here again. Yeah, I think that's correct. I guess none of the bullish engulfing qualify. At least for this engulfing definition. Looks close here. Let's see. We have an open of 23.24. And we have a low of 23.24. Oh, they're equal to each other. All right. Yeah, so that's not quite engulfing. I was almost very close there to a bullish engulfing. All right, well, let's try another instrument. Let's try the MQ. let me try and I'm going to change my session template again. And let's just do regular trading hours and see if that helps. It's really surprising I can't find an open that is lower than the previous day's low. That should be happening somewhere. I think I'm just about out of instruments here to test. Let's see here. Let's check gold. So it is very helpful to find a setup on your chart for both a long setup and a short setup. So, that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to find a bullish engulfing setup that meets those rules that I explained earlier. All right, I have one. Okay, so good. There is one there. And let's see, so seems like I do have something set wrong on that solver there, because I should be getting a long output here. So at least that's what I want here. So if we look at the low, the open of that bar, and compare it to the low of the previous bar, the open is lower. Well, I've double checked and triple checked, and there's just something weird really going on here. Oh, all right. Oh my goodness. I'm a little embarrassed here. I just realized what I did wrong. All right. So even the best of us can make simple mistakes. All right. So let me get rid of this extra solver I made here. And let me point out my error here. So that way you guys don't make the same mistake. Okay, so what I was doing is I'm comparing the same bar I'm comparing the open, of the current bar to the low of the current bar, but it was supposed to be the previous bar back, so I should have had a look back of 2, right? So a look back of 1 would be, the current bar, so that would be the engulfing bar, and a look back of 2 would be the bar prior to the look back, to the engulfing bar. So there we go. All right, problem solved. So let's see here. All right, so we do have a nice long engulfing bar there. So let's stick with this. Maybe I'll stick with gold here. And let's see if I can find a bearish engulfing here close by. Well, I'm not finding anything on gold here, so I'll just have to switch back to oil. All right, I don't want to take forever on trying to find that, so let me just go back to my bullish engulfing pattern I found. Let's see, where'd that go? Here we go. All right, so let's keep on going, and we'll use this bullish engulfing here that we found. Okay, so we have part of the comparison solvers built here that we need, right? So we're comparing the open price of the engulfing bar right to the low, and let's see here. Actually, should both of those be low? Yeah, I'm going to switch one of these back to the high the way I had it here. So, yeah, for the shorts, the high there. All right, this is definitely not an engulfing bar, but it demonstrates that if this was a bearish engulfing, right, the open of the bar is higher than the previous bar's high, and we're getting a short. So there. So I know that the short component of this solver is working correctly. So now let's get back to the bullish engulfing. All right, so we have the open price done, and let's grab another comparison solver. Let's connect it up there. All right, and so this is going to be looking at the close, and let's see, so in this case, so for a long situation or a bullish situation here, we want the close of the bar to be greater than the high. It needs to be greater than the high wick. All right, so let's get this name in here. So the close needs to be greater than the high for a bullish, or the close needs to be less than the low for a bearish setup. All right, so I've got a name set. So let's set the inputs here. So input A, well, that's going to be the closing price now. So we're looking at the closing price of the bar. So input B is, now let's set this before I forget, or look back at 2. There we go. Yeah, so for a long, the close needs to be greater than the high. And for a short, the close needs to be greater than the low. So there we go, and the low. And let's see, do we have, yeah. So we have a long output on our engulfing bar here, right? Because the close is greater than the high. Let's see these, take a look at this short output here. So the close, so if this was an engulfing, right, the close of the bar is less than the low of the previous bar for that short. Yeah. Okay, so now these two together, I believe it's only these two together, we'll find out here shortly, composes a engulfing bar. So let's see what we have so far. Alright, let's shrink this chart up and scan through the chart and see what we have. Yeah, look at that. Interesting. Ninja's candlestick pattern didn't identify this. Let me check my indicator settings here. So for bearish, yeah, I set it to 1. Let's see if setting that to 5 counts. Oh, there we go. Alright, so I guess leaving it on the default trend strength of 4, I'll put both of these on the default trend strength of 4. Okay, so now Ninja's Engulfing found this. Great. Okay, so there's a bearish. There's our bullish where we were working. Actually, let's mark this so we can go back to it later. All right, let's see what else we have on the chart. All right. Yeah, this one is definitely a huge bullish engulfing bar there. And we, definitely have another one there. And another one. All right. Well, it looks like gold has quite a few bullish engulfing bars. Okay, so let's move on to the confirmation bar part of this. Yeah, so let me get my chart set back up. And actually this one had no confirmation bar. So if you remember, the confirmation required a break of either the high or low, depending if it was a bullish or bearish engulfing. So let's scan through here. Find a pattern that does have a confirmation bar. And let's see if this one has one. This one definitely has a confirmation bar. Yeah, let's mark it. All right, so there's the low. Right, and we need the previous, or the next bar, the following bar, following the engulfing bar, needs to break the low for bearish or break the high for bullish. Okay, so now we can move on to the next step. Well, actually, let's take a moment here. And we can actually take what we've done so far and join these together here. So I can actually plug this into that. There. Like so. All right. And let me name this AND node here. So this is finding engulfing bars. There we go. All right, so now on to the confirmation bar. So what are we doing? Another type of comparison, right? We're comparing either the low or the high of the engulfing bar with the next bar. So let's say if we were So let's say this is our current bar. So what are we doing? We're looking for basically the low of that bar to break the low of the previous bar. So we just need a low of the confirmation bar to be lower than the low of the previous bar. Right? And the opposite for a bullish. So we just need the high of the confirmation bar to be higher than the previous bar's high up there. So let's grab another comparison solver. Right, that's probably 80% of what trading is all about, is doing a bunch of comparisons, right? Right, so let's see here. So I'm looking for the high of bar 0. So this is kind of like using programming terminology, to be greater than the high of bar 1, which is one bar back, or the low of bar 0 to be less than the low of bar 1. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do both of those comparisons in this one solver here. Alright, so let's set our input type to price again. And so for longs, we're using the high price. For shorts, we're using the low price. Alright, and input B, let's set the input type to price. And again, we're comparing the high to the high, and we're comparing the low to the low, but this needs to be one bar back. So let's set this to 2. There we go. And let's see, what do we have here? So we're looking for a short output on this bar, right? And we have a short output on this bar. Great. If we look over here, so let's say if this was an engulfing bar, if it was, right, the high of the confirmation bar is higher than the engulfing bar's high. Right, so the confirmation bar is pretty simple. It's just, is the high greater than the previous bar's high, or is the low greater than. Now, of course, all engulfing bars are going to have a long and short output on this, right? Because an engulfing bar is going to have a higher high than the previous, and it's going to have a lower low than the previous. Right. So there you go. So this basically is our confirmation bar. And so what we need to do is, right, take this output, and so we need to take right, the short output on the engulfing bar, and we need to shift it forward one bar to the confirmation bar. So I'm going to use another look back node. Right. So there we go. So now the engulfing bar signal is shifted forward to the confirmation bar, and now we need to connect it with the logic here that identifies the confirmation. So we're going to use another AND node. Connect that in and connect that in. And that, I think, should do it. So let's verify all this. So let's expand the chart. All right, so we know this confirmation bar. Yep, it's good to go. This is what we're looking for. So let's shrink the chart up here. And yeah, so remember this bullish engulfing did not have a confirmation bar, so no signal. And there we go. Yeah, it looks like it met all the rules there. Basically, this, so ignore Ninja's engulfing here. So this is our bullish engulfing bar, right? If we look at the body is greater than the previous bar's wicks, and the previous bar just barely broke the high of the engulfing bar. So there you go. Technically, that worked out. All right. Let's see here. Now that I'm done finding the engulfing bars, I'm going to remove Ninja's indicators here. There. All right. Let's see if we find any more patterns on gold. Nope. So there are not that many on gold. So let me switch over to the ES. I believe the question on this recommended the ES and oil. Let's see here. All right, so does this... Yep, that is an engulfing bar, and we had a break of the low. All right, yep, so that's our confirmation bar. Let's see, same here, definitely had a engulfing bar there, and we had a break of the high, and so that's good. And another one. I should grab an arrow. Alright, so there's our engulfing bar, and we had a break of the high. Yep. Alright, let's see if I can find another one. And engulfing bar there. Definitely an engulfing bar. And yet we did just barely have a break of that high. No. Let's see what we have here. There's, yeah, that's an engulfing bar. Yeah, even though we had a really long wick here, yeah, we still had an open that was below the previous bar's wick, so that's an engulfing bar, and yeah, we had a break of it. Okay, so I think our logic looks sound. Yeah, so I think our logic here works great. It's working out just fine. So let's open this up, and so you guys can take a look at the logic. Yep. So over here we have the engulfing bar logic. And you know, I'm not even sure we even need the bar direction logic here. So let me do a little test here. You know, I think I'll probably disconnect that, take our engulfing bar logic, connect it into that look back, and maybe that's all we need. So I might be able to just delete this bar direction logic there. Let's take a quick look, and yes, that's an engulfing bar. Oh, okay. Yeah, actually we do need that bar direction logic. So good. The first one right off the bat. Helped us find it. So this was an up bar and an up bar. So this was not a true engulfing. It's not a true reversal engulfing pattern, right? Because the previous bar here needed to be a down bar. So we do need to keep that logic in place. So let's reconnect everything back up the way we had it. So let's connect that up like so. All right. All right, yeah, if we go back to the chart, there we go. Now that signal is missing. All right. So there was a very specific definition of this engulfing pattern here. So we needed a down bar prior to a reversal up bar for engulfing. All right, so again, here's the logic to make sure that the bar directions are correct. Basically, that we're getting reversal bars, or not reversal, yeah, bar directions in the correct direction, I guess you could say. Then down here is the engulfing bar logic, right? So making sure that the bar directions are correct, all go into, that's all a component of identifying the type of engulfing bar that this question was asking for. And then the second part here is looking for the confirmation bar. All right, so with that, let me take a look at the chat window and see if there's any other questions in here. All right, so Jim is using two different ADXVMA indicators with different settings, different parameter settings, and he wants to identify when there's a difference between the two indicator outputs here. All right, yeah, give me a moment here to set up my chart and we'll get this done. All right, I guess I'll just, let's see, I'll jump over here to 1 minute bars. Let me get my data feed connected. All right, let's get a couple of ADX indicators on here. Yeah, I do not have the SI ADXVMA, and so I'm going to use the ANA one. So there we go. So I have the ANA ADXVMA. So we want two of these on the chart. All right, so one set to 6, and I guess I'll set the other one to 8. And let's see what we get on the chart. All right, so we're looking for differences, and looks like we have one right off the bat here. One of the faster ANA super trend, right, is turned red on us for a downslope, while the other one is still neutral, right? The other one's still kind of neutral right there. And then we had it happen again for another bar, like so. Let's see. The uptrend is in a sync. So, and here we go. All right, another spot here where they're out of sync. It looks like we have one bar right there where they're out of sync. So the faster ADXVMA is an uptrend, and the other one's still neutral. All right, so there we go. So basically, that's what we're looking for. Alright, so let's switch over to the logic tab there. And let me take a quick look at the chat board here. Alright, so Jim doesn't have the ANA ADXVMA. Okay. Yeah, so let me show you guys where you can get these ANA indicators here. Right, so you can see I have a whole host of these ANA indicators, and these are all the free ones from Lizard Trader. So let's take a quick look on how to get these. Alright, so if you're at our site, you can go to our vendors list here, and we're looking for Lizard Trader. There you go, Lizard Trader. And if we go into, if we hit the learn more and go into their page, then you can click on their logo here and it'll take you to Lizard Trader's site, and then you can go to downloads, and all the indicators that I show in these workshops are only the free ones, right? So I can't use paid for indicators because, you know, most people won't have gone out and purchased any paid for indicators. So I only use free indicators in this workshop. So anyways, you can just go in there. I believe you will have to register first, but anyways, you can just kind of find your way. So there's Ninja 7. And let's see, what is the ADXVMA, a moving average, I think? Let's see. There we go. ADXVMA, moving average. So, alright, so that's how you get them. So just go to Lizard Trader's site here. Alright, get back to BloodHound. And, okay, so I'm on the logic tab already. So let me hit the new button. We'll make a new logic template. Let's see. So we're going to do an ADXVMA 6 versus ADXVMA 8. So I guess if we're just trying to identify when they're out of sync, I guess that's kind of non-directional. So I'll produce a long and a short output at the same time. So let's see, let's grab a comparison solver. Actually, let's see. No, I think this might be a case for the XOR. The XOR doesn't get used all that often. So let me back up a moment here. I'm going to get rid of that comparison solver. And instead, I'm going to use the threshold solver. And I'll show you why in just a minute here. So let's open that up. Okay. So let's go to our input. And there's the ANA ADXVMA. And we can see we have a trend data series here. So this trend will tell us whether the indicator is yellow or neutral, red for down, blue for up. So we're going to use this data series trend, and so that's for the 6 period. All right, so before I get going too far, okay, so now when you have indicators, that have some kind of output that tells you the trend that the indicator is identifying, so such as this ADXVMA, this trend, typically what programmers do is when this trend will equal a positive one for a uptrend, or when the indicator is blue in this case, right, the trend will typically equal -1 if it's identifying a downtrend, or right in this case when the plot's red. And if it's neutral, such as the yellow plot, then the trend will equal 0. 0 for neutral, +1 for uptrend, -1 for downtrend. That's typical for what most programmers will do with something like this data series trend type of deal. So it is up to the programmer as to exactly what values they put in this trend, but +1, 0, and -1 is pretty typical. So what do we want? So we want to find a 1 and a actually, we don't even need to set a threshold, right? So for the long output, we're just looking for, that trend value to be greater than 0 for an uptrend. Or, yeah, actually, let's take a look here. So there you go. We can see everything's lining up. So when the 6 period turns blue, right, we're getting a long output. And when I set the short output here, less than E, and what is E? E is 0. So when that trend is less than 0, that's going to be a downtrend. Like so. There we go. And a downtrend. All right, just setting the Z order on those indicators there. Okay, so that's for our ADXVMA 6. So let's go to our solvers list and we'll take a shortcut. We'll make a copy here. And this threshold solver will be our ADXVMA 8. And let's go change the indicator settings here. Let's go into the indicators. Change our period to 8. All right, there we go. It's all set up. So now let's go to the logic tab. Let's go to the solver nodes. Go to existing nodes. And there's that new one that I just made, the ADXVMA 8 period. Let's drop this on the board. All right, so now I think all we need is the XOR. And let's see what we have. Yeah, I think that's it. So we can see here, let's take a look at some of this. So if the 8 period, right, is still in a long trend, but the other one is neutral, right, then we'll still get a long output, right? If the 6 period is in a long trend, but the slower one is neutral, and we'll get a long output. And right, the same is true for a downtrend. So if the faster one goes down, right, but the slower one is neutral, you'll get a short. And let's see here, what do we have? Yeah, looks like the slower one is in a downtrend, but the faster one is neutral, and we have a short. And here, the faster one is down, but the slower one is neutral. So, all right. So, there we go. I think we have it. Let's see. Okay, and Jim would like to see when they're in sync. Okay. Oh, you want to find them in the same direction. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. So you're looking for all right. So, yeah, Jim, when you said signal based on different values, I thought you meant different values coming out of the indicator. Okay. No problem. That's even easier. So, That is even easier. So let's minimize the chart. And we'll just grab a AND node. Let's pop that up here. And there we go. And there. All right, so there's when an uptrend is in sync. And let's see if we can find a downtrend in sync as well. There we go. There's both on the chart there. All right, so if we, let's name these here. All right, so this is in sync, and this XOR is out of sync. There you go, there's both. All right, so Boolean logic makes that pretty easy. All right, well, thank you guys for coming along, and just a reminder, these workshops, are fueled by your guys' questions, right? So keep your questions coming, and these workshops will keep on running. So, all right, well, Jim, Eva, guys, thanks, welcome. And all right, tomorrow is the Blackbird workshop, so same time. All right, hope to see you guys there. If not, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay, bye-bye, guys.